Okay, I'm Don Cochrane, and I started Cochrane Supply in 1976.
67.
66.
67.
67. I can't even remember when we started. We started in 1967. We didn't have any customers. We didn't have any money. We didn't have any products. We didn't have a plan. But we were going to go in business. And we opened up in August of 1967. Pat Ziemba was one of either our first employee or one of our first employees. When we started, there were actually three of us, a partner, myself, and we hired Pat, I think, as our first employee, and we hired Pat because of his burner knowledge. We had knowledge of residential type controls, but we needed someone to help us build a burner control kind of business, and Pat was the guy we got.
Mm-hmm.
And he came with us in 1979.
No, 68.
68.
Yeah, but then back again in 77.
Well, don't forget that part.
Okay.
Didn't have an R890 to sell.
Yeah, that's
We
right.
got it from Honeywell. I don't know how many years later when Honeywell
Right.
set
Well, we
us
actually
up.
have a flame safeguard distributor. Right.
They set us up as a flame safeguard distributor, and about maybe 5 years later, we sold them, but we bootlegged them.
Okay, so in the early years we used primarily electromechanical controls. There was quite a building boom going on in Detroit and in the metropolitan Detroit area, so a lot of new buildings were being built, and at the same time the automotive plants were starting to modernize, and as they did so, they were using less and less manual type controls to control the paint drying ovens and everything else, and putting in more automation. And so as they did that, our business really started to increase with burner controls. And to the point where that was really the major part of our business compared to what it was in the early years. And then about 78, we started doing training on burner controls, and we would do training on both sides of town, on the Timberland Hall on the east side and Regency on the west side. And in most years, we would train over 100 guys. That started in 78 and continued. We did fall classes last year, so we're still doing that. From the electromechanical controls, the nice thing about the RM7800 is it brought us into the digital age. Up until then, most of the burner controls couldn't communicate. You had to use special instruments in order to find out what they were doing. They just weren't very user-friendly. And so in 1992, Honeywell came out with this, and we signed up as part of the program to distribute this product. FireEye actually had a digital control before this, but it was big and bulky. It was meant for their high-end burner controls. It was expensive. This one went all the way from the small controls that you would see on a makeup air unit or a small boiler, all the way up to a powerhouse boiler. And it just depended on the chassis that you bought, but the digital display and all the other parts, the wiring bases, all were interchangeable. And the control was small, and it could communicate. So now we could tie in originally into a communication module. You could tie 5 controls into it, and then you could talk to a computer on site or over a phone line back then to a computer off site. And then, I don't know, back about maybe 15 years ago, they came up with Modbus or digital multi-drop type controls, and we could do away with that and go right on the internet. And so that's what we've been doing ever since.
Okay, Pat, back in the old days when we first started, burner control was sort of a joke.
Right.
Everybody looked at those big tall chimneys, and every once in a while one of them would come tumbling down, and they always wondered, why did that chimney come down? And we always knew exactly what it was. Incomplete combustion
Right.
that caused a boom, and you introduced the spark. And I remember one case where I went to a cleaners. It was a big cleaners. And the way that they performed safety control on this boiler was they kept the back door closed to where the boiler was. And they had a broomstick stuck between what was the safety switch on the RA 890 at that time and the door.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever they opened the back door, the burner would go off. But then somebody'd have to go back there, put the broomstick back in, and make the safety switch. There were all kinds of contrivances that people had for avoiding having to go reset the safety switch on the boiler.
Yeah.
But the safety switch was really there to keep the chimney from coming down.
That's right, yeah.
And we started in business, and Honeywell wouldn't have a thing to do with us. Okay?
Okay.
Even though I worked there, and Pat worked
And I
there,
worked there, we worked there.
they'll have nothing to do with us. They made it big for everything else. We were the first ones that came along that had any concept of what the stuff we were selling was like. And as it turned out, we turned out to be the first control wholesaler in the country. Everybody else came to us to find out how we started. Honeywell made life as hard and difficult as they could for us.
Yeah, Paint the Town Blue was an effort to put the blue controls in place of the competition's controls. And so they had a special promotion where if you turned in an old FireEye or whatever control, then you would get a special discount. And so that helped get over the hump of having to buy a whole new
FireEye was
control.
red, by the way. and
FireEye
these
was
were
red,
blue.
yeah. And they were our main, the main competition was FireEye, and of course, which we also sell. So. Well, I can tell you some of the stories going into automotive plants. I mean, holy cow, I remember the old Chrysler Jefferson plant. They had a paint drying oven in there, and the way that they would start it, they would light up the burners with, one guy would push in the start button, another guy would go inside with like a magazine or something and kind of whoop across and get the ribbon burner to light all the way down to the end. And then he'd come in and the guy would let go of the button. So you got to hope that the guy holding the button was his friend, or otherwise he'd be in big trouble.
I mean, this is so revolutionary. You can't imagine how many buildings and how many people's lives have been saved because of this. I mean, if they made 1 million of those, they might have saved 1 million people.